Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Luke, the 6th chapter. And it came to pass on the second Sabbath after the first, that he went through the cornfields, and his disciples plucked the ears of corn, and did eat, rubbing them in their hands. And certain of the Pharisees said unto them, Why do ye that which is not lawful to do on the Sabbath days? And Yahushua, and they were referring to the plucking of the corn, as they looked at it as labor. And Yahushua answering them said, Have ye not read so much as this, what David did, when himself was an hungered, and they that were with him? How he went into the house of God, and did take and eat the shewbread, and gave also to them that were with him, which is not lawful to eat, but for the priest alone. And when you go into the law, that is the case, right? It says anybody that's not holy, right, i.e. the priests, anybody that's not of them is not to eat of that. That's specifically for them. But David ate it, and the Most High didn't come to him and say, look, I'm going to destroy you because you ate that shewbread. Because David did it out of necessity. Now, it doesn't mean that you just wake up on a random day and say, shit, I didn't feel like cooking last night, so I'm going to go get some of that shewbread. Then you're going to get cooked. But Yahushua is using this as an example because they were coming here trying to condemn his disciples. And he's like, in your, in the writings, right, in the writings in the past, did not David do something similar, something quote unquote unlawful? And he said unto them that the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath, right? Because the Lord Yahushua, as he came, and you can see why he was speaking in this way, and that's why they said that the way that he taught was different, because he was speaking with authority and he was really explaining a more in-depth way of how we were actually supposed to live in accordance with the law. Because what the Pharisees and the scribes and the doctors of the law were doing was they were using their knowledge, of the scriptures to their benefit while being, putting unnecessary burdens on the people. So in case in point, if you were hungry in this case, you just got to sit there and starve. And it came to pass also on another Sabbath that he entered into the synagogue and taught. And there was a man whose right hand was withered. And let me see, when you go into that word wither, I mean, it's pretty much what it sounds like. But as it says here, of members of the body deprived of their natural juices, shrunk, wasted, withered. So it was pretty much like that, like a skinny, probably stuck in a certain position, kind of thing where he couldn't use it. And the scribes and the Pharisees watched him whether he would heal on the Sabbath day, that they might find an accusation against him. But he knew their thoughts, and said unto the man which had the withered hand, Rise up and stand forth in the midst. And he arose and stood forth. Then said Yahushua unto them, I will ask you one thing. Now you notice here it says he knew their thoughts, right? So he knew what it was that was in their minds and what they were looking for. So he said, I'm going to ask you something. Is it lawful on the Sabbath days to do good or to do evil, to save life or to destroy? And looking round about upon them all, he said unto the man, Stretch forth thine hand. And he did so, and his hand was restored whole as the other. And they were filled with madness, and communed one with another what they might do to Yahushua. And that madness goes into like being angry. And it came to pass in those days that he went out into the mountain to pray, and continued all night in prayer to God. So they were pissed off because they were like, damn, this like, he just did this, but he said it in a way where it's like blameless. Because now imagine they were to say, no, you can't do good on the Sabbath. Then people might say, oh, so you're saying that we can't do good? Like, he would often use their thoughts and words against them, because that's what they did. They used a lot of technicalities to try and say, oh yeah, you're guilty of doing this. Oh no, you're not supposed to do that. Oh, and in doing that, they would merge traditions, okay, and their customs into what they would back up by the law. Technically, because you did this, that, and that, then you've broken this, or you're infraction of this or that, and so on. So it says here, and it came to pass in those days that he went out into the mountain to pray, and continued all night in prayer to God. And when it was day, he called unto him his disciples, and of them he chose 12, whom also he named apostles. Now, Yahushua had more than just 12 disciples. Okay, that's why this is mentioned here. This emphasizes that he selected 12 disciples out of them, who he named apostles. Okay, but he had more than 12 disciples. Simon, whom also he named Peter, and Andrew his brother, James and John, Philip and Bartholomew, Matthew and Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon called Zelotes, which this Alphaeus here is referring to Joseph, all right, because this James was a brother of Yahushua as well, because a part of his apostles or disciples were two of his brothers, James and Jude, who here is known as Judas. All right, so it says here, and Judas, the brother of James, and Judas Iscariot, who also was the traitor. So Judas, which is Jude, like from the book of Jude, the brother of James, they were brothers, and those two were the brethren of Yahushua. Verse 17, and he came down with them, and that was it. I think it may be listed in here, is it? Oh, whoops. That's not what we're looking for. Okay, so this isn't the one, but there's an account in here. Let me see if I can just find it real quick. Sisters. Yeah, Matthew. Yeah, Matthew 13 and 55. Is not this the carpenter's son, referring to Yahushua? Is not his mother called Mary, and his brethren James and Joses and Simon and Judas? And his sisters, are they not all with us? Whence then hath this man all these things? And so that James and I believe that Judas right there are the two brothers that of Yahushua, like biological brothers. Verse, where we at? 16. Nope, verse 17. And he came down with them and stood in the plain and the company of his disciples, and a great multitude of people out of all Judea and Jerusalem, and from the sea coast of Tyre and Sidon, which came to hear him, and to be healed of their diseases. And they were vexed with unclean spirits, and they were healed. And the whole multitude sought to touch him, for there went virtue out of him, and healed them all. And he lifted up his eyes on his disciples, and said, Blessed be ye poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Put that on. Good. Blessed are ye that hunger now, for ye shall be filled. Blessed are ye that weep now, for ye shall laugh. Blessed are ye when men shall hate you, and when they shall separate you from their company, and shall reproach you, and cast out your name as evil for the Son of Man's sake, right? So because of the Lord, because you follow him, because you believe in him, they would treat you this way. You're blessed because your reward for following the Lord is going to be great, right? You may hunger now, you may endure harshness now, but in the end of it all, you're going to laugh, you're going to be filled, you're going to rejoice, because you're going to be part of the greatest in the kingdom, as where they would be a part of the least. Rejoice ye in that day, and leap for joy, for behold, your reward is great in heaven. For in the like manner did their fathers unto the prophets. See, so it's nothing new. They're going to do it against the Lord and his servants. But woe unto you that are rich, for ye have received your consolation. Now, this doesn't mean necessarily that if you were a believer but you had a lot of riches, then you're woe unto you. It's the Lord is saying this because most people that have riches, that's what their main focus is. right? That's what their focus is, not the truth, not this gospel. So a lot of them become rich through the means of the world, which they spend most of their time and effort and energy into. So by laboring to that, they have received that consolation. But those that labor for the Lord toward his name, they will receive a much better consolation. Woe unto you that are full, for ye shall hunger. Woe unto you that laugh now, for ye shall mourn and weep. Right? And that signifies those that have accepted, right, the current or present world and decided to how you say, I guess, live their lives in it, right? Not desiring the better way, not seeking after the Lord, not laboring now for the eternal rest. Woe unto you when all men shall speak well of you, for so did their fathers to the false prophets. Right? Because if you were speaking the truth, the harsh truth of it, they wouldn't speak well of you because their deeds are evil. But I say unto you, which hear, love your enemies, do good to them which hate you. Now, these enemies and those that hate you are really the same quote unquote neighbors, your neighbors, which are Israelites. All right. But now, especially in our present time, and even during the time of Yahushua, it pertained more to the believers. That's why when his mother and brother came to try and talk to him, when they came and told him, he said, "Who is my mother and brother? Those that do the will of my heavenly Father." So now, if it's really about those that are in the believers, okay, because even in this time, majority of Israelites have been likened unto heathens. Okay, so even in that, they're not behaving like our neighbors, right? They're living more like heathens. So how do you then have enemies in the body of believers, right? Or how do you have enemies in the inner circle of those that fear or serve the Lord? When you go into that word enemies, it says here, hated, odious, hostile, hostile, certain enemy, opposing, and opposing another. Now, this doesn't mean to the fullest extent, right? This isn't talking about like Esau, Edom, or these nations, but in the truth or in the ministry or in the believing circle, you're not going to get along with everybody, right? It's not going to be everybody that's like your tightest, most close-knit ally and so on. There's some people that you just don't mesh with. Some people where your spirit just doesn't, line up with. You may have had some disagreements. You may have had some clashes before. They will be likened onto your enemies. You may not like or love them per se. Like what I mean by that is like you may not have a high level of affinity to them just to be like, oh, like, I'm not gonna do you any harm, but you're not, let's say, the first person I'm gonna call to hang out with. Now, when it says love, it doesn't mean you have to go and I completely love this person and all that. The word there goes into hospitality. Okay. So it says here, of persons to welcome, to entertain, to be fond of things to be well pleased. But it's more in the sense of you have here agapaho, which goes into agape, which is a form of hospitality, right? That's a general sense of love, meaning like if you have somebody that you may not get along with per se in this truth, or you may not see eye to eye with them, you still love them in the sense that if they needed something, you would still help them. Right, you won't say like, "Nah, f you," because I don't mess with you, or I don't mesh with you. I don't really, particularly, I'm not really fond of you. You wouldn't say that, right? If they were in need of help and you could help them, then you would help them. That's that love the Lord is talking about. Okay, do good to them which hate you, bless them that curse you, and pray for them which despitefully use you. Lord ain't saying this, because why then did he tell Jeremiah, right? Why did the Most High tell Jeremiah, don't pray for these people? Okay. And then the Lord says that he's gonna have war with Amalek from generation to generation. So if an Amalekite does you wrong, does that mean you go and pray for them and go and love them? The Most High is not going to hear that. That's not honorable before the Lord. He doesn't care about them. So this is talking about, and the Lord said this in order to keep that unity, okay, and that love alive amongst the body. That these skirmishes and so on are all squashed in the common ground that we all have, which is to serve him. And unto him that smiteth thee on the one cheek, offer the other. Now, these things are not 100% like literal, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to have somebody come and slap you on the cheek. You say, oh, here's the other one. But if there's somebody does you wrong, okay, in this truth, you forgive them, all right, considering like if this is a sincere person, they're not just a demon, but they're a sincere person, you forgive them, and you're still willing to say help them out, if they needed something, right? Because that first cheek or that first opening you gave them, they went and designed whatever the case is. But if they sincerely repent, then that's fine. Okay, you don't have to be closed off to them per se. And him that taketh away thy cloak, forbid not to take thy coat also. And the cloak and the coat are dealing with like your clothing, right? As it says in the NLT, if someone slaps you on one cheek, offer the other cheek. Also, if someone demands your coat, offer your shirt also. Salakia, 1 second. Where we at? Salakia. Verse 29, right? And so that's going into, still once again remaining hospitable or charitable to those that are in this believing circle. Verse 30, give to every man that asketh of thee, and of him that taketh away thy goods, ask them not again. So if you give something to somebody, right, don't be one of those who are like you're constantly, pressing upon them. Like if it wasn't something that you like, let's say, hey, we're doing a transaction, I'm lending you money, and then you agree to pay me back. But this is just something like you help somebody out, right? You help a brother out, maybe you gave him some funds or you gave him this. Don't let that be in your mind, which is like, I expect you to give me something back in return, right? Or you go around like, hey, you remember the last time I did this for you, you ain't done nothing about it. You ain't giving me this. You're not supposed to have that mindset, okay? And once again, there's a balance to this all, right? The Lord is also not saying, because you have to be practical, the Lord is also not saying, just go ahead and be a pushover, right? You don't have, but you're gonna go and put yourself in in a very disadvantageous position, which is not wise, just because the Lord said, oh, you got to give if they ask. So if they ask for your whole bank account, you go and give it to them? No. So you have to use common sense with these things, right? You can't just take this at face value. You have to be practical about it. But these are guidelines the Lord was saying to them, but also an application to us. And as ye would that men should do to you, do ye also to them likewise. See? So when you really look at this, this was a mindset that had we had this back then, when you look at like the laws, when you go back to the Torah and you look at the laws, they in order to keep those laws, especially ones towards our neighbors, you have to have this mindset in which the Lord is teaching to those that are listening, because that would allow you to fulfill that law, for example, that says if you see the ass, right, or the donkey of one that you hate going astray, you still got to go and get it and bring it back to him. See, but now you can't really apply this to all Israelites because you have some that are just wicked. All right, they're not the Israel of God, and the Lord is not looking at them as such. And also the Lord mentioned, right, I forget what chapter it's in, but he said, what you've done for these, you've done for me, right? I was naked and in prison and in hungered, and you didn't come and see me, right? Or you came and you visited me. So who are those applying to? The believers. Okay, what you do for them, you do for the Lord. So as it says here, verse 31, and as ye would that men should do to you, do ye also to them likewise. Right. So, for example, if you're in a situation where things are not looking good for you, you would want others to show you mercy. So be merciful, right? If you're in a situation where you need help, you would want others to be charitable unto you. So you be charitable unto others. For if ye love them which love you, what thank have ye? For sinners also love those that love them. So what's so special about that? Because it says more about you than it does about them. For example, King Saul tried to kill David many times, but he didn't return with that same energy. And it wasn't because of Saul, right? It wasn't because Saul was showing him love, but it was because of David. It said more about David and his character and his integrity than about Saul, or even about the situation. So the Lord is saying here, if you only love those that love you, well, what makes you any different than somebody in the world because they do the same thing? What's special about that? And if ye do good to them which do good to you, what thank have ye? For sinners also do even the same. And if ye lend to them of whom ye hope to receive, what thank have ye? For sinners also lend to sinners to receive as much again. See? And when you go even into the writings of the Apostle Paul, he alludes to that, right? When he talks about how when you're in this in the body of Yahushai, right, we have to look at each other as, being of one family, so to speak, right? Not looking at each other like how we would have in the world. Oh, you're this person. Oh, you're my servant. Oh, you're this, or you're that, or you're this. Because at the end of the day, we're all servants of the Lord. So we got to treat each other accordingly. But love ye your enemies and do good and lend, hoping for nothing again. And your reward shall be great, and ye shall be the children of the highest, for he is kind and unto the unthankful and to the evil. Yeah, because there's a scripture that says that the Lord causes the sun to shine even upon the righteous and the wicked, or and the unjust. Be ye therefore merciful, as your Father also is merciful. Because all these things you do, the person may not appreciate it or see it, but the Lord does. Okay, he sees that and it pleases him. And so you may do these things and somebody else may not reciprocate it, but the Lord might raise you up because he might say, you have shown forth traits and characters worthy of being in this position or being in that position. Verse 37, judge not that ye be not judged, condemn not, and ye shall not be condemned. And what that's saying is, in other words, if you're going to judge, be ready to be judged, right? By the same measure in which you're judging, right? But there are matters in which you have to judge, right? If something is a case is brought before you, or, somebody's not doing what's right and it's blatant, then if they're going off, they're going off. But don't be the pointed finger at everybody and not be ready for the finger to be pointed back at you. It says here, and ye shall not be condemned, forgive, and ye shall be forgiven. Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down and shaken together, and running over, shall men give into your bosom. This is, he's using the example of like a marketplace. Like, for example, if you go to, say, a restaurant and you're buying food, right? Takeaway, and then you have those areas where they'll scoop up like the rice and they'll put like they'll lighten up the ladle, have some fall off, and then they'll put it into your bowl, and then your bowl is like half full, and you're like, what the hell is this shit? And then there are other places where they'll scoop full scoops, put it into your bowl, press it down into the corner, move it to the side to make more space to put some more food on the side, and really like pack up your bowl to the fullest, to the brim, and then close it up and use a rubber band to tie it on top. All right. The Lord is saying here, when you give, what's going to be given to you will be like that. Like when somebody, like it's a good measure, it's a good portion, they press it down, they shake it together to make space so they can add some more, as it says, and it runs over. That's how it's going to be given back to you. For with the same measure that ye meet withal, it shall be measured to you again. And he spake this parable unto them, can the blind lead the blind? Shall they not both fall into the ditch? Right. Because if a blind person leads another blind, they both can't see where they're going. They're going to fall into the ditch. And that's what it's like when those that don't have the truth are teaching others, and then they're both being led astray. The leader who's going in the wrong way and the congregation who's going in the wrong way following the leader. The disciple is not above his master, but every one that is perfect shall be as his master. Right. The disciple, the student, is not above his teacher, but if he learns the right way, he will become like his teacher. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but perceivest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Which is like saying, you're quick to point out the faults of somebody, maybe a smaller fault in somebody, without even seeing the bigger fault in yourself. Because as a beam is greater than a mote, so is, say, their fault than yours. Either how canst thou say to thy brother, brother, let me pull out the mote that is in thine eye, and when thou thyself beholdest not the the beam that is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, cast thou first the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to pull out the mote that is in thy brother's eye. So say you're The meaning being you're guilty of something, but you're quick to point out somebody else's guilt in another matter. Why not you handle yours, right? Take care of that fault that you have, so you can have that experience to be in a better position to then, explain or call out or exhort somebody in whatever it is that they need to do better. For a good tree bringeth not forth corrupt fruit, neither doth a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. For every tree is known by his own fruit. For of thorns men do not gather figs, nor of a bramble bush gather they grapes. Right? You don't go to gather figs of thorns, right? You expect thorns, and you don't go to a grape tree to expect an orange. A man out of the out of the good treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is good, and an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is evil. For of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaketh. Right? Because the things that you say and do come from your heart. And if your heart is evil, the things you do and say will be evil. That'll be your fruit. And vice versa for the good. And why call ye me Lord, Lord, and do not the things which I say? Whosoever cometh to me and heareth my sayings and doeth them, I will shew you to whom he is like. He is like a man which built an house and dig deep and laid the foundation on a rock. Because who is the rock? Yahushai. And when the flood arose and the stream beat vehemently upon that rock and could not shake it, for it was founded upon a rock. That is like somebody who listens to the Lord and takes his words and actually performs it. You're like building a sure foundation for your house. And whatever adversity may come, it'll stand. Why? Because you've done the things to build that sure house. But he that heareth and doeth not is like a man that without a foundation built an house upon the earth, against which the stream did beat vehemently, and immediately it fell, and the ruin of that house was great, because you heard it, but you didn't follow it. So you were just like a house of cards, and all it took was one light breeze to blow everything down, because you will not be able to stand because you didn't practice what you preached. So you don't know what it's actually like to do the things you were saying. And when you're faced with those troubles, you won't know how to handle it because you never did it. You never tried it. You never practiced what you preach. And that brings us to the end of the book of Luke, the 6th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rakha Kudash. Until next time, Shalom.